Dental Fuel, the podcast that focuses on what no one else is talking about: mistakes. The dental world is full of before and afters, and no one is talking about the middle. Dental Fuel brings you the unspoken in between. Dental Fuel is brought to you by Ignite DDS Masterminds. Masterminds is a program that helps provide you the tools you need to take the next steps in your career. Building a team is important in our practices. Irene shares how team mistakes may often start from within. An interesting and important perspective. Let's check it out. As you started to build your practice, and I'm still kind of hiding from saying employed, but as you were bringing on team members,
onboarding is a good word.
Yes, thank you. As you were onboarding team members, building a team is tough. You know, managing, that's not a good word either. Staff,
that's a good word.
Team is difficult. Yeah, different personalities, and finding that right core team for you and to build your vision and where you see the practice kind of going can be difficult. What are some team mistakes that you've encountered?
Ooh, the red flags.
Yes, yeah.
I can tell you a couple, and I can tell you that I needed to remove myself from the hiring process because I was the problem. So I was onboarding all of the wrong people because I wanted to find people that were like me. And oftentimes you can't have too many people that are the same working in the same environment. Their brains don't work the same way. They don't click the same way. So I was very focused that I had this laundry list of characteristics, traits, skills, whatever you want to call them, of people. And I wanted them all to check off all of these boxes. And those were the, parameters in which I would hire someone. And then I realized very quickly that, you need a mix of people in a practice. Mm-hmm. So in the first 3 years, I think finally we're at like a stable place right now where most of my employees have been with me for over a year, some 2 years. But in that first 12 months, I was a hot mess. I think I was just over expecting and then hiring people that would fit those boxes. So I think the lesson that I learned is that you need to be, I hired someone to help me with interviewing skills. So what was the lesson? And then we'll go backwards. So what was the lesson? The lesson was that I was interviewing incorrectly. I was looking for the wrong things, and I was trying to hire the best person for the job. I was trying to hire the Irene of 10 years ago as an employee, but you realize that person isn't going to be around forever because their hopes and dreams and, are going to take away from them. So I lost 3 of my employees in the first 12 months to going back to school for dental hygiene. All 3 of them were either admin or dental assistants. 2 were assistants and 1 was admin. And I hired the best person, and they were in that role for the best 5 months that I had ever had them for. And then I got the message that, I'm going back to school. I'd like to become a hygienist. Apparently I made
a good impression on them.
So inspiring.
Yeah.
They decided to leave. So then I hired another person who was another really great person who also ended up leaving as an assistant to go back and become a dental hygienist. And now I have 2 receptionists, not 1, but 2 receptionists who are also planning on leaving me to go back to dental hygiene. 1 who was supposed to leave in September, but had to defer for financial purposes. And another one who basically is going to leave me in a year. So that's tough.
That's a good way to bring people on, though. You want to become a dental hygienist.
Yeah, but then you're investing a lot of time in training people and you can't lead with a conversation interview and be like, so how long are you going to stay here for? Like that's not, I don't even think you're allowed to do that. But I learned that, sometimes the best people that you're going to find are the ones that are probably going to leave you one day. And now in hindsight, I know how my previous bosses felt when I quit for whatever reason. I worked for a dentist who, when I started teaching, she wouldn't give me days off in order for me to travel and lecture. So I left her, and she was very upset, and rightfully so. She put a lot of faith in me, and I produced highly for her. So it was hard for her to hire someone else. Same thing with my last office when I threatened to leave because I wanted specific pieces of equipment in order for me to elevate my procedures. She said no, and I gave her my resignation, and then I opened my own practice. She also didn't take it well. So it comes down to like finding the perfect person that you can train into that role and not expecting them to come out of the gate being the, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the quote unquote, like people call it, rock star employee, which I hate that
Mm-hmm.
term, but everyone will resonate with what it means.
I think what you said is very insightful about, when we hire, oftentimes we're looking for similar qualities to ourselves, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I would assume that maybe you are similar to me. We're very efficient. We like things done a certain way, and we know that if we bring somebody on who is similar, likely you would get things done. But I think that takes also a leap of faith to kind of take a step away and allow somebody else to kind of take the charge of that, as they're kind of looking at the big picture from a different lens. And they can
Mm-hmm.
bring different people who they could feel could balance out the entire team and add to the team. So I think that's a huge pearl, personally.
Yeah,
Yep.
and really getting to know the people. It's hard to be a manager, so you're like not managing people, you're managing expectations. And at Voices of Dentistry, I don't know if you were there, but that was the lecture that I gave on the main stage. It's also linked in my YouTube. Thankfully, they were able to record it, and the title of it is "Can Not Great Employees," I use the S word, so I won't swear here, but can not great employees become good leaders? And the answer to that is yes. It just means that you need to lean in a little bit more with them. So I think the kind of lesson to learn is that you can find someone, that diamond in the rough, that ultimately is the one that takes your practice to next levels. And it may not be the person that you expected. Like right now, I have an assistant. She is surpassed and exceeded the expectations that I had for her coming into the office. When she first came into the office, she's been with us a year. We're supposed to celebrate her 1 year anniversary this past Monday. Um, she was reserved and quiet. And I realized after learning about her that she worked in a practice where she did everything. She
Mm.
was the assistant, she was the receptionist, she worked for a single doctor practice that also did his own hygiene. She ran stairs, she did all of the ordering. She was overworked, undervalued, and at times demoralized. And she came into my practice expecting that was just
Mm-hmm.
normal. Like that was
Like a
just how it
standard.
is.
Yeah. Gosh.
So she was very quiet and she said yes to everything because that was what she was doing before. So when I started to take tasks away from her in order for her to build efficiencies on the tasks that she was doing, she felt like I was punishing her. But I wasn't. It's just that that's not how we operate. We've got, one full-time dentist, one full-time assistant chairside, two hygiene, one floating assistant, and then two receptionists. And to some people, that may sound like overstaffed. Um, but overstaffed also means that people get to do their jobs better
Mm-hmm.
instead of half.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Mm-hmm.
one person calls in sick, you've got someone to help out.
Right. You have that
So
backup.
so she's flourished now and she is coming up with ideas and she's providing solutions to problems that I didn't know that we even had,
Mm-hmm.
because she had the luxury of space and time and the ability to be creative. Um, and I didn't hire her. Someone else
Right.
hired
Yeah.
her.
Somebody else did. Yeah.
My office manager hired her. I didn't meet her until her first day. And that's the case with a couple of the employees that I have now that I'm just like, wow, this is such a good, like a great find. And the best part is that I didn't have to find them myself.
Did that make you nervous the first time you chose to, step away and not start to hire an interview?
Yeah. Yes and no. So I became a restorative hygienist 1 year into opening my practice. So I went
Okay.
back to school
Okay.
in this quote unquote quasi post COVID time. So 2 years ago, yesterday was my very first day of clinic working on teeth. I think I did like 9 amalgams and I failed my rubber dam assessment. Um, and I had no choice. So I was in school 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And I had to relinquish all power for the practice to the office manager that I hired. And that was the expectation, is that I can't do any operational stuff on these days because I'm stuck in school and I don't want to take away from my school experience in order for me to be kind of one arm on one side and one arm on the other side. So I relinquished all of that power willingly. And I said, as of September 7th, which was the first day of school, um, I won't be making any of these decisions unless you actually need me to. And it's interesting when you relinquish that power, how much more power people get within the practice to make those decisions on your
Mm-hmm.
behalf. And they do it in a way, they can do it in one of two ways. Either they'll do it, to just get the job done, or they'll do it with this like passion that they had the final say in a monumental decision that might change your business trajectory. And that is what I got. I ended up getting people that were just now an owner mindset, and making decisions that have grown our practice without me even having to be there. And so interestingly enough, I still only work 2 days a week practicing clinically, because the office runs so well without me there. I get to do other things, like I'm not working today. I am. I have been all day. I've been doing other things, but clinically, I get to like let them do what they do best, and then I get to go in there and do what I do best, and everything just runs.
It's a great balance.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to do everything again from day one, what would you do differently?
I hate this question. Usually the question is and I think this is just a mentality thing, that people have this concept of hierarchy in our industry, that the receptionist is the bottom of the barrel, or the assistant is, or the hygienist, and then there's the dentist, and then there's the specialist, and then there's the whatever. So there's this like perceived notion of this hierarchy. And the question I often get is, if you could do it all over again, would you go to dental school? And my answer is no, because I love what I do. And I think that it's pretty unique to be one of few that gets to do all of the things that I do and not be a dentist. You get a little eye rolly at some point, but if I could do everything over again, I'd probably wait to open the practice, but that's knowing that COVID was happening. And I may have chosen, there's some really interesting business management courses through Yale and through Harvard. I may have decided to do those first. There's like a 16-week kind of mini MBA for women through Harvard that I encourage you to check out if this is something that you want to do.
For sure.
Because I'd love to know more about business operations. And I don't know. I think that everything happens as it's meant to.
That's very true. That's very true.
The simulation is we are all in a simulation of some kind, and I was put here for a reason. So sure. I'll get ejected at some point.
Yes. Well, they say hindsight's 20/20. So I was just curious if you would go back and change anything. But sometimes
more knowledge. I think more knowledge.
Yeah, for sure.
Coming into it with more knowledge would be great.
Sometimes the ways things play out is the best way that things needed to have played out, right? Sometimes we grow and we gain knowledge in that way, as opposed to maybe everything going perfectly from the get-go.
Does everything ever go?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I don't think that ever happens.
No. If you would have told me in 2007 that this would be my career now and my life, and if I were to like look at a whiteboard of all of the things that I've done since graduation to today, I would have thought that you're crazy. Like there's absolutely no way. You mean someone's going to send me to Singapore to speak on caries prevention and management?
That's awesome.
That's nuts. Like that's not anything that you could ever even dream of. It wasn't part of my radar. And now I'm working on this crazy project with Spear Education where I get to redesign their entire hygiene curriculum.
That's so cool.
We're building an entire platform. And I think that that's just, you can't even dream those things.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Dental Fuel. Join us next week as we close out our conversation with Irene, where she shares some excellent expert advice. You can follow her on Instagram at toothlife.irene. You can also follow us on Instagram at Dental Fuel and at IgniteDDS. You can learn more about Ignite Dental Masterminds at ignitedds.com/masterminds.